Let's talk about
politics, environmental science,
global warming,
constitutional rights,
social and economic challenges,
money, power, choice.
Nature does not compromise.
extreme droughts, extreme heat waves.
sea levels are rising, and it is
about climate change.
The future of the next generation.
Welcome to Let's Talk About Climate, a podcast where we talk about climate change and how it relates to all of us. Join us, Change the Chamber fellows, as we talk with scientists, grassroots campaigners, politicians, and more as we open up the conversation on climate. Let's talk about climate.
I'm your host, Alexandra Gonzalez.
And I'm your host, Meliya. And we'll be discussing the social and environmental impacts of Green Friday. Most people know what Black Friday means. It's the day after Thanksgiving where several stores and companies have an increase in the number of sales and discounted items to promote mass amounts of shopping in the U.S. This intense day of shopping is thought to be savior's heaven. However, we will be discussing the whole truth of what that day represents: excess consumption and mindless consumerism.
We will first be providing context and historical background of how we came to have the Black Friday, and then talk about what it means to have a Green Friday instead, and specifically what alternative actions can be taken. Before we start the bulk of our conversation, I'd like listeners to know who they're going to be hearing from. So Meliya is a climate fellow with Change the Chamber. She is currently studying environmental science and biology at Hamilton College, and she's from Berkeley, but moved to New York for college.
Yeah, and Alexandra is also a climate fellow with Change the Chamber. She finished her undergraduate degree in legal studies and public policy from UC Berkeley and now lives in San Jose, where she's currently applying to graduate programs that intersect with sustainability and business development.
So to start off by giving the background of Black Friday goals and aims, when I was first doing my research with Black Friday, I was really surprised of how far this history goes back. On October 3rd in 1863, during the Civil War, Lincoln actually solidified that the day we celebrate Thanksgiving was on November 26th. However, the US government wanted to create excitement and extend the Christmas shopping season because of how much the boost to the economy that shopping season creates, and starting from that Thanksgiving holiday all the way leading up to Christmas. So this is an excerpt from Britannica. It says, when the country was still recovering from the depths of the Great Depression, the retail industry successfully lobbied to have Thanksgiving moved forward 1 week to Thursday, November 23rd. This extra week of shopping was a success. So the US Congress made the change permanent in 1941, which is why Thanksgiving now always falls on the fourth Thursday of November. So it just extended that extra week. In the 1940s, when Roosevelt signed that order, permanently moving Thanksgiving, unfortunately, not all states complied with the change. And during the 80s, with the help of major department stores, retailers, and the media, the term Big Friday was used to try to create a rush of excitement for shoppers to get into the stores a week earlier. So the other myth of Black Friday was that the name was inherently derived from the business meaning, which is a definition that Will Keaton, who is an expert on the economy and investing laws, wrote for Investotopia in 2023 in January. But basically, he said that the expression in the black is used to refer to a company's profitable and current financial health. And a company is said to be in the black if it is profitable, or more specifically, if the company produces positive earnings after accounting for all expenses. So the term has described is used to describe when accountants used updated financial data in their books to kind of track what amounts of money they were profiting off of. For example, if a company is in the black, it's profitable, and if another company is in the negative or earning negative amount, then it's red, unprofitable. However, very
That's
very,
so interesting. I had no idea that was kind of like
a
the
little
early
more
history of it.
But yeah, that's kind of what the idea of a black, like a business who's in the black, is good. But the word Big Friday had not yet been Black Friday. And it was in the 60s in Philadelphia when the term Black Friday was actually used by police officers to describe the number of increased shoppers and suburban tourists who were coming in for shopping into the city to begin their holiday shopping. And these huge crowds created a lot of frustration for the police. And that's when the first term Black Friday was used, and with a racial undertone for the population that came in. then in the 80s, when the financial heads got together and wanted to recover this like racistly labeled day of shopping, that's when they solidified that Black Friday meant for business purposes. And it wasn't until the 80s that this economic rebranding created a new facelift for the holiday, so people could kind of get excited economically versus having that racial undertow be pulled in. And we see that Black Friday as a stressful event still, sometimes needing to get up hours before stores open to line up, some people even staying in all night waiting to get in that first sale. But that often results into a lot of violence or just customer and shopper confusion and frustration. And it also ends up harming a lot of smaller retailers that can compete. And they cannot compete with those giant fast brands, retailers with flashy sales and extreme price cuts that only larger conglomerates can absolve. And as we move into this modern era of online shopping in 2021, Black Friday was expected to produce over 380,000 tons of carbon emissions from the atmosphere. And that was from Energy Live News in 2021. So a lot of a lot of result from this day.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting. And also that like now we have Cyber Monday, which is its own whole event that's kind of really similar to Black Friday, but it just extends the sales on and keeps giving people like, oh, if you missed Black Friday, now you have a second chance to get the next sale. And I think it's kind of just like an interesting continuation of Black Friday in an interesting way that like all of these companies have found to continue making money, but tricking all of their consumers into thinking that we're all saving money.
Yeah, like it's a very like finite, like you only get Friday, but also you could also get Monday. And I think you were saying too, when we had a couple meetings about this, that they created like the Small Business Saturday, and that kind of like in an eerie way echoes that they understand how much detriment they're having on our smaller businesses. So they're kind of like throwing the bone of like, well, you can have your Small Business Saturday too, but don't
Like right in between your two
but
giant
right in between
sales.
you're already pretty exhausted from Friday, like and we can talk about like our personal experience of the Black Friday event, but you're already so exhausted from Friday and you can already like, well, I'll just be at home for Monday, I don't need to like go anywhere, so it doesn't do much.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk a bit about maybe our experience of like Black Friday. I don't know if you want to go first.
Yeah, so I guess my experience with Black Friday as a kid, we never really did Black Friday as a family. My parents really focused on like family time the day after Thanksgiving, but kind of as I've gotten older, like we've been on road trips the day after Thanksgiving and we'll pass by a mall, and if it's not too busy, like we'll all need a couple of things and there'll be really good sales on jeans or socks or something, and we'll go and get a couple of things. And then I think as I got to like high school and college, Cyber Monday has become a bigger event because it's so much easier. You don't have to go into the stores, which I know is part of like the brand's marketing, and like their plan is that they know that it's much easier. You can do it from your couch. You can do it in the morning from your bed, or when you're relaxing before you go to bed at night. But I think that's kind of my whole journey through being a part of Black Friday, Cyber Monday, the post-Thanksgiving early holiday sales.
It's like so more casual. It's like, you know, if you're around it, then you go to it. It's not like you guys are like, okay, this is the
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I definitely did know people like growing up that their families, it was like their big family outing for the day, is they would all go together and they would come back with like electronics that they needed, because like Best Buy would have really good sales. And like I knew people that that's what they would do the day after Thanksgiving for sure.
I think my family was like a bit of both. Like my dad's side definitely were like very excited to plan out like not so in California I mean, as you know, like we have a lot of our shopping malls outside, so it's not like a huge mall. They're more like pavilions or just kind of outside spaces. But we would just like walk for like 3 hours starting from like, yeah, it could be 5 in the morning, or sometimes stores used to open up their doors at like 1 a.m.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, there's a place I think about an hour south of where my hometown was, and all the kids would get together and like in their trucks and like go at like 1 p.m. like after eating and then Thanksgiving stuff. And but I mean, it was just crazy to see people like rummaging through like boxes and bins that they would build out just for that day to like throw all of their maybe winter coats or whatever the stores were trying to like push out as much during the season.
Yeah.
But it was a lot. Like this is a lot of fabric. I just remember thinking like I could swim in these like cardboard bins of just clothing and other stuff.
Yeah. And it's also interesting because like they have that much out like on the store, like on the floor, but then they also have so much more in the back for like when they run out after you leave the store. So like as much as you think that there is like while you're there at the store, there's always more.
There's always more in the back, yeah. But it makes it feel like we only have this bin, like we can't, there's nothing else. Like after this, then it's all gonna be gone.
Yeah.
But it never is. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess kind of like the next thing we wanted to talk about is the idea of Green Friday, and some other ways that you can kind of participate in Green Friday, either through shopping or not buying anything at all. So Green Friday began in Canada in 1992. It started as Buy Nothing Day. And so it was created by anti-consumerists and really promoted buying nothing at all or buying from sustainable and ethical brands. And so kind of like more recently, as so much information has come out about the impact Black Friday and other online shopping and other big deals around this time of year has come out, there's so much impact on the environment. So much waste is created by Black Friday deals and shopping. And so one study found that about 80% of all Black Friday purchases end up in the trash after just a couple of uses, which I thought was kind of a crazy statistic that really showed like the Black Friday purchases are like those unnecessary purchases that people are buying because of the sales, not because it's something that they need. And so I thought that that was kind of a really powerful thing, that like 80% of all of the things that people are buying just get thrown away a couple of uses later. And then I couldn't find any data for the US, but in the UK, 429 million kilograms of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases will be emitted on Black Friday through the transport of products, which is a huge number that I found really hard to kind of visualize. But 429 million tons of carbon is about equal to the amount of carbon that would be taken out of the atmosphere by 105 square kilometers of fully grown trees in 1 year in ideal conditions. This is still kind of very abstract, but I did some more calculations. And like this area that like these fully grown trees would have to be in is the same size as Disney World or 15,000 football fields. So it's like a giant area, and that's just for the like outputs of greenhouse gases like from the UK. So that doesn't include the US, it doesn't include the rest of the world.
That one day from the one country. Yeah.
So
nobody's going out like planting new pockets of like Disneyland.
Yeah, like whole Disney World areas. So I thought that that was really crazy. And also kind of with that just includes the transportation. So it doesn't include like the outputs of the manufacturing of all of these products. So it's not even like the whole impact of these products, it's just the manufacturing.
Oh, you mean the transportation, the moving?
Oh, just the transportation, sorry.
Wow.
Yeah. So I thought that like kind of did a really good job of showing the like true impact on the environment. Yeah, so overall, Green Friday is an anti-Black Friday movement. There are many ways people can choose to participate. Some ideas that we found were like spending time in nature, or to spend time with friends and family, or to support a charity and volunteer. You could also plant trees. You could also raise awareness for the impacts of Black Friday and our consumption practices, or also shopping at smaller businesses is another way to participate in Black Friday that I thought if you still want to participate in some early holiday shopping at smaller businesses are often a great way to shop kind of more locally, a little bit more sustainably, and support kind of like your local community and businesses there. So
I definitely see how like just a reduction in like the transportation issue, like not even getting into like the manufacturing and production of it, but if you have a small business, at least you're not paying for the truckloads of that product to come in from, you know, other cities or other states or other countries. So that would be good.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So those are just those are 6 different ways that I found that I thought were they kind of appeal to lots of different people. And there are lots of different ways for people to participate in Green Friday instead of Black Friday, if that's something that we're all interested in. But Green Friday is a way to just create some personal accountability for changing our consumption practices and to help preserve the environment. Um, Another kind of like take on Green Friday is as a day to reflect on consumption habits and be more mindful about sustainability. And this was one idea I really loved, was just like instead of spending the day buying all of these unnecessary purchases, you can take the day to kind of reflect on your own spending habits, your own consumption habits, and just look to the future and see how you can be better in the
Yeah.
future.
Definitely practicing mindfulness, just with like your overall shopping habits and then maybe even like yourself that day. Always really good.
Yeah. And then kind of we talked about this a little bit earlier, but another alternative to Black Friday is Small Business Saturday. And so lots of people love Black Friday as a start to holiday shopping. And so Small Business Saturday is just another day kind of in that little week of consumption, but it does aim to support local businesses and still gives lots of chances to buy holiday gifts, support people in your community, and other kind of shops that you may not wander into for any other reason.
Yeah, yeah. I think I think I've definitely tried to like go into my community and look at the small businesses. I mean, it's so easy to go to Target or like these bigger companies that just have everything. Um,
Yeah,
it's really fun to meet the people who are actually owning and running the business themselves, and then you can get a little bit more connected to people too.
definitely. Um, And then there are also lots of states and organizations that are making it easier to get outdoors and explore. So Colorado created Fresh Air Friday, where they are encouraging citizens to go outside and give thanks to the outdoors. And then also, we both live in California, so this one is like especially important for us, I guess, but the California government is also offering free passes to state parks on the Friday after Thanksgiving to help eliminate barriers to people's ability to explore the outdoors, which I thought was a really cool thing. Especially like with me growing up, my family always like went for a picnic or went for a walk, and it's really nice that California as a state is making it really accessible for people to go to state parks on the day after Thanksgiving and just spend that time outside.
Yeah, that is really great. I know like sometimes it can get pretty hard to get those spots. So the fact that they are like taking an initiative and getting accessibility to not have like another barrier, that's really great.
Yeah, especially because like I know we have a couple of state parks like so close to Berkeley and like pretty much in the city. Like I think you can take like public transportation to them, and they really are just like making it just a little bit more accessible. And I think that that is really important.
Mhm.
And then kind of like the idea of Green Friday um is a really great way to continue Thanksgiving reflection on the people and places that are important to us and kind of continuing to grow these relationships. And so there's so many ways to participate in Green Friday, which is one thing that like through all of this research that I've really discovered that is really cool about it is there is something different for everyone. No matter how you want to participate, there is a way to be able to do that, whether it be just hanging out with family and friends, going for a hike, giving back to your community. Like these are all ways to support the Green Friday movement. And so my favorite idea to kind of like close this all out is that Green Friday is the idea that we're changing our consumption practices to giving practices. And there's so many ways to give through donating money, time, or attention to earth, important causes, and people around us. And so I think that that is kind of like a really powerful thing, especially like right after Thanksgiving, to like give back
Yeah,
to
yeah.
something around you.
Very beautiful. It's recirculating that giving theme in a really true and like showing up kind
Yeah.
of. Mhm. Great. So once again, thank you all for joining us on this special podcast. It was such a pleasure to have this space and hear about our communities and the environment that we care very much about.
Yeah. And then to wrap up this episode, we'd like to remind listeners that next year is an election year. Civic engagement does start with all of us, and by voicing your concerns to your elected officials, you could do this by making public comments, writing a letter, or talking to neighbors about issues in your community. We can really see the change that we want to have, and we can really be a part of that. So just a reminder that this upcoming year is election year. We want to encourage everyone to get out there in some way in their community.
And as a special action ask, we at Change the Chamber would also like to remind listeners to sign a current petition that urges President Biden and the EPA Administrator Reagan to act boldly and swiftly to finalize and implement the strongest possible pollution standards by May of 2024 to meet our climate, public health, and environmental justice goals, which you can do by going to the description of this podcast or go to Climate Action Campaign website, hover over priorities, click on Solution for Pollution, and find the link to sign the petition.
Thank you so much for joining us today, and to our listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of Let's Talk About Climate. Before you go, don't forget to like us, subscribe, and rate us 5 stars on your podcast platform. It really helps us out. Follow us on Instagram at Let's Talk About Climate Pod and Twitter at Talk Climate Pod, and check out our website, changethechamber.org. You can find all the links in the description. With that, this was Let's Talk About Climate. Have a nice day, and thank you so much for joining us.